Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. They tell a story about this couple who had a dispute. They went to the rabbi to resolve it. The rabbi listens to the husband's side of the story, and the rabbi says, "You're right." Then the rabbi listens to the wife's side of the story, and the rabbi says, "You're right." And then the rabbi's wife overhears the conversation, so she says to her husband, "How can they both be right?" And he says to his wife, "You're right too." We know that resolving disputes and making peace is one of the greatest mitzvot in the Torah. This week's Torah portion is about the rebellion, the mutiny of Korach and his assembly against the leadership of Moses. And Moses tries to make peace with Korach and his assembly, but to no avail. And two of the rabble-rousers, the troublemakers in the rebellion, were individuals by the name of Dasan and Aviran. And Moses sends a message to them and says, "Let's get together, let's talk, let's see if we can resolve this." And they say, "Absolutely not. We will not meet with you." And then they go on to say, "Is it not enough that you took us out of a land flowing with milk and honey to die in the desert? But not only that, you did not take us to the land of milk and honey that you promised to bring us to." And here they completely distort reality, claiming that Moses took them out of Egypt, which was a land flowing with milk and honey, to die in the desert, and did not fulfill the promise to bring the Jewish nation to the land of Israel. And the question is, why did Korach and his community rebel at this stage? It wasn't like Moses was just appointed leader now. It wasn't like Aaron was just appointed high priest. There's no new information. Why didn't they rebel the minute Moses and Aaron were appointed leaders? Why after last week's Torah portion, which was the story of the 12 spies? And the answer is that they saw this as their opportunity to stage a coup against Moses and Aaron. Because they said, look, the Jewish people were promised to go into the land of Israel. Now they were told they would have to wander for 40 years in the desert and perish in the desert. And therefore there was this despair and this hopelessness and this despondency amongst the Jewish people. Their hopes and dreams were dashed. And therefore they saw this as an opportunity to create a challenge to the leadership of Moses and Aaron. And therefore they said, "You didn't take us to the land of milk and honey. You didn't fulfill the promise." And this is what happens when people lose hope. They are vulnerable. They are easily swayed, as we've seen throughout history, that different leaders were able to take advantage of the disappointment and the unhappiness of the nation and use that for their personal gain and advantage. The problem and the mistake of Korach and his assembly was that God did fulfill the promise, and Moses did fulfill the promise to bring the Jewish people to the land of Israel, to the land of milk and honey. It's just that the promise was postponed. That generation, through the sin of the spies, demonstrated that they're not capable of going into the land of Israel. They're not qualified, and therefore it would have to be their children, the next generation that was raised in freedom, that would merit to go into the land of Israel. And so too in our personal lives. Sometimes we have dreams and hopes, and we're disappointed that they're not being realized or materialized. But we should never become despondent to give up hope, because that could be our downfall. We always have to have faith and trust. And maybe the timing isn't right now. Maybe God is postponing it. As they say, sometimes God's answer is not no, but not yet. And sometimes, like in the case of the spies, it would be the children who would realize the dream. But God's promises and dreams will always be fulfilled. And therefore, as Jews, we never give up hope. That's the secret of the Jewish people. That is what has kept us until this very day. There's a remarkable story last month in Israel. There's a rabbi in a very prominent yeshiva in Jerusalem. His name is Rabbi Tzvi Kushalevsky. And he is 88 years old now. And when he was 80 years old, his wife of 50, 60 years of marriage passed away. And he, unfortunately, was never blessed with children. He prayed throughout those 50, 60 years, "God, grant me a child, grant me a child." But his prayers were not answered. After his wife passed away, 2 years later, a shidduch was suggested. He was 82 years old, and a woman by the name of Rachel in Jerusalem who also lost her husband, and she had children from her first marriage, and she was 50 years old, and they met, and sure enough, they got married. And Rabbi Tzvi Kushalovsky marries Rachel at the age of 82 years old. 6 years later, last month, at the age of 88, and his wife Rachel is 57, they were blessed with a child, with a son. And at the Brit Milah, thousands of his students from over decades of years of being a Rosh Yeshiva, head of a big prominent yeshiva, came to celebrate with this rabbi. And you see this rabbi holding his infant child, the realization of a dream that it only came true at the age of 88 years old. And the rabbi and his wife say, this is the power of faith and trust. Surely when Rabbi Tzvi Kushalovsky, his wife, passed away, he thought, now, obviously I will never have a child. But then God sends him another wife, and he merits at the age of 88 to hold the child that he prayed for his entire lifetime. Let us never give up on our hopes and our dreams. Have faith and trust in God's promise. Sometimes there are setbacks, disappointments, letdowns, unanswered prayers. But if we hold on to our hope, we will realize ultimately all of our dreams. Have a Shabbat Shalom.